City Council meeting to order. Will everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Councilmember Ruffridge,
Present.
Pamela Parker, Councilmember Pamela Parker, Councilmember Carey, Councilmember Carey, yeah. So, Councilmember Chilson? No, for some reason they're not here. Oh, I got muted. Okay, sorry. Councilmember Pamela Parker?
Here.
Councilmember Carey?
I saw his
Councilmember
lips move.
Chilson?
Present.
And Councilmember Lisa Parker? You have a quorum. Oh, I'm sorry, Student Representative Cox.
Present.
Moving on to the approval of agenda and consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffridge. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Would the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Approval of the October 14th, 2020 council meeting minutes. New business ordinances, ordinance 2020-026, reappropriating remaining funds originally appropriated in emergency ordinance 2020-23 that will not fully be expended by the November 22nd, 2020 expiration date as established in Soldotna Municipal Charter, Article 3, Section 3.020, Emergency Ordinance. Introduced by the City Manager, a public hearing on November 12th, 2020. New business resolutions, Resolution 2020-055, confirming the mayor's appointment of Councilmember Lisa Parker to the position of vice mayor. And that is your consent agenda.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to ask if there were any changes to the agenda or consent agenda. Are there any public comments on any of the items just read by the clerk? And for those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Are there any public comments from anyone here in the audience? Seeing none. Are there any remote attendees wishing to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see no hands raised.
Thank you. Having no one else wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any council objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Hearing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved. City Clerk Sainer will now give the newly appointed Vice Mayor, Lisa Parker, her oath of office. Thank you. Now, moving on to the next item on the agenda is presentation with prior notice, and that would be the Pollinator Project mini grant final report presented by Tim Dillon, Executive Director of Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District, and Anna DeVold, creator of Promote Our Pollinators.
I'm not sure if we're supposed to be hearing anything on this end, but nothing's coming through.
The clerk is turning the microphone on. Just one moment.
Thank you. My name is Tim Dillon, Executive Director of the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District, and with me today I have Anna DeVault. The mini grant program and provided KPED match was used to help support local entrepreneur Anna DeVault, as well as the quality of life in Soldotna, Alaska. The purpose of this project is to expand food sources and habitats for local pollinators such as honeybees. Anna's project signifies the importance of pollinators and entrepreneurs in our community and is also an identified goal in our comprehensive economic development strategy. Without a doubt, Anna's project worked to improve the community and quality of life for Soldotna citizens. Having gotten to know Anna over the last 2 years, I feel fortunate that we have such real superstars in our younger people. Anna?
Well, hello everyone. My name is Anna DeVault, and I'm a gardener. I spend hours poring over seed catalogs and websites, picking out the prettiest, weirdest, and best-smelling flowers. Sometimes all at once. Well, no matter how hard I try to order variety, I always end up with way more sunflowers than anything else. In the past 3 years, I've grown over 300 of them. Did you know that sunflowers require a lot of water? In the summer, I have to go out and water them every day, sometimes twice. It was on one of these days that I noticed 4 bumblebees all clumped together on the same flower. And as the summer went on, I kept noticing all the pollinators my sunflowers attracted.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we move the mic a little closer? I can't hear anything.
And that made me curious. What did
Thank
they
you.
do? Why did they like my sunflowers so much? So I did some research later that year, and I'd like to share what I learned with you. I discovered that pollinators are animals that perform the process of pollination by carrying pollen from one flower to another. Their work makes it possible for seeds to form. They're crucial to the creation of food and the sustainability of plants. The United Nations estimated that pollinators are responsible for the reproduction of over 75% of our food crops and 90% of all flowering plants. And experts have found that 1 out of every 3 bites of food are solely dependent on pollinators. Many of our favorite foods, like vanilla, coffee, chocolate, and apples, are completely reliant on pollinators. So if you like your morning latte or vanilla ice cream, you might want to listen closely. In addition to being critical to our global food supply, pollinators are also important contributors to crops that provide biofuels, medicines, cottons, food for livestock, and even construction materials. Sadly, I learned that these amazing creatures' numbers are declining at an alarming rate. The Science Times estimated that about 90% of the total bee population has been completely eradicated. The Earthwatch Institute declared that bees are the most important living things on the planet. Pollinator numbers have been declining for many reasons, and 2 of the most critical issues are habitat loss and pesticide use. Pollinators need places to live in order to survive, but with more and more land being used for cities or farming, their habitat is being destroyed. This kind of expansion is also detrimental to the number of flowers pollinators have access to. Pesticides are often used to increase agricultural production by preventing the destruction of crops by bugs. But these chemicals affect pests and pollinators alike. You probably knew that if a bee comes into direct contact with the pesticides, it will die immediately. But even worse things can happen if it's exposed to the residue. It will bring contaminated pollen and nectar back to the hive, resulting in the whole colony being weakened and more susceptible to other diseases. I discovered that these are some of the serious challenges pollinators face today, and I wanted to do something about it. So I sat down at the kitchen table and started to think, how could I help pollinators in my community? The result of that question? POP, Promote Our Pollinators. POP is an environmental program designed to educate our community about the importance of pollinators while providing ways to promote their population growth and inspiring the next generation to be good stewards of our natural resources. My original idea was to make a flyer, activity book, and website to educate and inspire our community. Then it grew to include make and take presentations in schools and other community venues like the Senior Center, where participants plant their own pollinator packs. These special 6-pack pots contain 6 different pollinator-friendly seedlings, the start of a pretty, portable pollinator garden. It's my hope that these packs will be placed all over our urban areas, providing the reliable, easy-to-locate food source that pollinators need at frequent intervals. As pop started to bloom, I started designing promotional items like reusable tote bags, buttons, and stickers. I also started fundraising to support the cost of pollinator pack growing and distribution and ordering promotional supplies. I now supply free activity books to businesses where children sit and wait, like at orthodontist and dentist's offices. I worked with you, the City of Soldotna, and Soldotna Parks and Recreation to design and install 4 permanent pollinator garden signs for our community spaces. The signs have been made and are installed at the Soldotna Creek Park and the Soldotna Library. I've also created a Facebook page, Twitter account, and website to share information about pollinators and pop events. You may have heard that I took first place in caring for the Kenai last month, but it was after placing third in caring for the Kenai last year that I decided to carry out and expand my idea. As a result, I've received many grants and scholarships, such as the NSTAR Challenger Center of Alaska Caring for the Kenai Project Development Grant, the Awesome Foundation Grant, and the Central Peninsula Gardening Club Grant. I was recognized as one of the ACS Summer of Heroes winners, and I was super excited when 3M and Discovery Education honored POP with the 3M Young Scientist Challenge State Merit Award. I received the Innovator Award from the Spirit of Youth competition, the Prudential Spirit of Community Award named POP as a distinguished finalist, and it received the Gold Level President's Volunteer Service Award for 2020. But what I'm most excited about is the President's Environmental Youth Award. Nationally, only 10 are given every year, and POP was honored as one of the recipients. Several businesses have even shown their support through monetary and in-kind donations. I'm so grateful for their generosity. And to show my appreciation, I've placed their logos on the back of my POP activity books. Last March, I planted around 150 pollinator packs under grow lights, and I distributed the ready-made, pre-grown pollinator packs in April and May. In addition, I helped plant around 150 packs during make and take presentations in schools and at the Soldotna Senior Center. I also developed POP logo plant tags for distribution with the pollinator packs. It's my hope that they will be prominently displayed with the fully grown packs to raise pollinator awareness. I've also created an online class based on the POP concept. The online class includes lessons, quizzes, activities, writing prompts, and videos designed to educate students about what pollinators do for the environment, why pollinators are declining, and what we can do to help. I've aligned my curriculum with KPBSD standards so teachers can use the class as part of their distance learning program. Everything I've talked about so far has made an impact on our community, but one of the most important parts of my project wouldn't have been possible without the City of Soldotna grant, POP curriculum kits. Your grant allowed me to assemble 11 of these kits, and I was able to distribute them to Soldotna schools and the Soldotna Senior Center. These materials impacted approximately 350 Soldotna families. 4 kits went to Soldotna Montessori Charter School, 2 kits went to Soldotna Elementary, 2 kits went to Connections Homeschool, 1 kit went to Redoubt Elementary, 1 kit went to Skyview Middle School, and 1 kit went to the Soldotna Senior Center. I used the City of Soldotna grant as follows: $559.50 for reusable tote bags, $305.04 for stickers and labels, $25.31 for seed packaging supplies, $73.49 for planting labels, $30.80 for pots, $89.90 for reusable totes, $69.90 for planting soil, for a total of $1,178.59. Curriculum kits contain everything a teacher needs to hold a pollinator lesson: a class set of flyers, activity books, pollinator pack planting supplies like seeds, 6-pack pots, soil, pot plant tags, and care instructions, a teacher's gift, pollinator curriculum, and other POP goodies to remind kids of the importance of pollinators, like POP stickers and reusable tote bags. In addition to learning about pollinators and their environmental impact, I also learned a lot of practical, career-oriented skills that will be beneficial to me in the future. I've become much more comfortable writing and giving presentations in a wide variety of environments. This project has also introduced me to many computer skills that I never had before. I learned a great deal about graphic design, and I discovered that I love it. Creating the flyers, activity books, logo, and pollinator garden signs were some of the best parts of POP. I even learned how to create a website and use social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. In order to submit POP to the 3M Young Scientist Challenge, I learned how to use video editing software to create and upload my video to YouTube. Now, you may not have noticed, but I'm pretty shy by nature. And POP has helped me get out of my comfort zone to introduce myself to other people. So if you think I'm awkward now, you should have seen me a year ago. I also learned that filling out paperwork to trademark a logo is super hard, and it takes forever. It was also through POP that I realized I want to be an online distance education teacher. The encouragement I received from my KPBSD distance education science teacher, Miss Leslie, coupled with the fun I had presenting at schools and creating my materials, made me decide to become a teacher. I hope that my project doesn't just affect the community environmentally, though. I hope that it shows young people that being smart is cool, and that you don't have to be embarrassed because you like to go to school and learn new things. I'm also trying to help close the gender gap in STEM careers. Only 30% of all STEM career positions are filled by women. And through POP, I'm trying to be a good role model for other girls to show them that being interested in science, technology, engineering, and math is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to celebrate and pursue. As a gardener, I really like planting seeds. So here's one for you to grow. Find something that you're passionate about, no matter how small, and see how you can use it to change the world. Thank you all for your time this evening, and thank you for believing in POP and supporting our community's pollinators.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the councils or comments? Go ahead, Mr. Rufford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that that was a great presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and happy that we supported this project. It's great. I would, yeah, I want to get a pollinator pot, or what do you call them?
Pollinator
pack. That's what I need. I need one of those. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council? Ms. Parker?
Thank you, Anna. I would have to say you are far from awkward. Far, far from awkward. And that was a great presentation. And it was the format and all the things that you learned through the process. And it's also encouraging to hear that you want to be a teacher, because I think based on what I heard and observed, I think whatever you decide to do, you are going to be a great success. Yeah. And I will end with the President's Environmental Youth Award. I was affiliated with Caring for the Kenai in the past, and I had the opportunity to go to the President's Environmental Youth Award when President Bush was in office. And it was quite an event, and being there with the Alaskans that were there that had received the award. So congratulations on that great award. And like I said, you're going to be a success no matter what you decide to do.
Any other council? Mr. Dillon, go ahead.
I just wanted to say as we wrap up that this gives us hope. It really does. And thank you, Mom. Her mom has been through this whole thing. And I have to tell you, in the last 2 years, between Mom, her sister, her dad, great family, and also Caitlin Corson and all the work that she's done with Anna, it really has been a great project for the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District. And this is what our future is all about. So thank you for giving her this opportunity.
Are there any other council comments? I do have a couple. Excellent job. You did a very great presentation. And I'd like to say a couple of your pollinators were living around my house, and every time my granddaughter came over, she got stung by them. She managed to do that twice this year. And if you're into gardening, I have a bunch of gardening books that if you would like to have about Western plants and everything else, I'd be more than happy to give them to you. So if you can contact the city clerk or the city manager, and we'll get together on this.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all now. Thank you. You did a great job again.
didn't get rid of me yet. Yeah, no, I'm just going to leave it there until the 3-minute thing.
Moving on to public comments and presentations. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? And for those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. I'll go ahead, Mr. Dillon.
Thank you. Tim Dillon, Executive Director, Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District. Just wanted to do 2 quick things this evening. Give you some updates. As of last Friday, the Alaska Cares program for small businesses, the state had given out approximately $204 million to 4,000 businesses. Here on the Kenai Peninsula, out of those 4,000, we already have 887 of them approved for a total here on the peninsula of $36,217,477.07. So if you look at it, we have 6.5% of the state's population is based here on the Kenai Peninsula. And so far, we have approximately 18% of the Alaska Cares money. So I think we're doing fairly well. A couple of highlights, your accommodations and food. There's been 11 of them that have been approved for $491,000. Comfish, there's 15 of them for $650,000. Healthcare, there's 12 of them for $585,000. 4 construction operations for $269,000. 23 in the recreation area for $783,000, and 12 in the fishing and hunting area for $365,000. That's just a little bit of a highlight so that you have an idea. There's still 151 applications to be processed, and there's been 151. There's been 151 that have been processed here in Soldotna and approved for $6,690,374.13, and that's just here in Soldotna. There's another 42 applications that are in the process queue right now for Soldotna, for a total of another $5,071,108. So realistically, from the Kenai Peninsula, from the whole borough perspective, you've got $36 million already dispersed into the businesses, and we've got another 179 apps for another 16 million plus. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that. The other thing is, we are doing, because of all the things we've been up to and all, we're doing a little bit of a soft marketing campaign, and I gave the clerk copies of these. There's a tube for each of you. We've actually produced 8 different posters, and they're all greetings from the Kenai Peninsula. And there's 8 different designs. So there's a full set of them for each one of you. In fact, I believe John has sent this on to Shannon so that if you guys want to use it for shopping local. But these are all the different designs. And as I said, there's a full set for each of you. The only person that doesn't get a full set is Pamela Parker, because she already got her set when she was over in my office. Excuse me? You got your tubes. So just be careful when you're taking them out of the tube. Just make sure you make it smaller before you pull it out. But this will just give you an idea. And again, it's just a soft marketing piece that we're doing. You'll notice our logo just in the bottom corner. Quality of living is number 1, so that's what we're working on. So be more than happy to answer any questions about the numbers. But thank you so much for letting me come and visit with you.
Are there any council questions or comments? Seeing none and hearing none, thank you very much. Are there any remote attendees wishing to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see no hands raised.
Thank you. Moving right along to item number 6, Assembly and Legislative Report. Are there any representatives from the borough or state in attendance who would like to speak? And there isn't any here in the building, but are there any on the remote attachment? Or-
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see none in attendance, nor do I see any hands raised.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, public hearings. Testimony limited to 3 minutes per speaker. And the first one is ordinance 2020-025, accepting grant funds from the American Library Association and increasing the library's, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $2,000 in the general fund for the libraries. The library's Connect You to Coverage program, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact?
I will move to enact ordinance 2020-025.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffridge. Is there a second?
I'll second. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Pamela Parker. And there's a report from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a memo in the packet from our librarian, Rachel Nash, and she's with us on the phone as well, if there are specific questions. But this is a grant to allow us to do some additional advertising and promotion of a program that helps connect people to federal health insurance coverage. And as you know, our librarians connect people in lots of different ways to information that they need. This is a $2,000 grant, and we do recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? And for those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Seeing no one here in the chambers, is there any remote speakers wishing to?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see no hands raised.
Thank you. Having no one else who wishes to speak on the item, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Mr. Ruffridge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on the health insurance availability through the program, if that's through just the marketplace for coverage that's outside of work but not Medicare, or is that including Medicare enrollment as well?
Thank you, Mr. Ruffridge. It's anything available through the federal exchange, so that's its focus.
Thank you.
Any other council comments? Mr. Chilson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask, is this a new program that we're facilitating for the first time at the library, or have we done this in the past?
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Yes, this is a brand new program. In fact, when we originally applied for it, it was just a mini grant to participate in the program, almost as a pilot project. And then after we were accepted, we were able to receive additional funding to help promote it. So we're testing this out. We're going to see how it goes. And during these interesting times, we think that people will need this service.
So if I understand this correctly, it's basically helping us advertise awareness of the exchange and getting people onto that marketplace so they can get health care. But are we also providing assistance in the application process or giving people direction towards resources they can use to learn how to do the application process? Because I've heard that can be pretty difficult for someone who's not experienced with it.
Yes, exactly. So that's exactly what it's for. We actually have someone already trained in as a certified application counselor. I had to write that down. And so we will be showing people the exchange. Well, this person will be showing people the exchange on a one-on-one basis and helping them see what is out there. And then if we need to, we can always refer them to, I believe PCHS has someone who can help them further if we cannot. But we think that we'll be able to help the majority of folks just to get information about it.
Well, this is fantastic. Thank you for taking the lead in that.
Thanks.
Any further council comments? Ms. Parker?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Rachel, the federal exchange, can you get us a link to that so I can kind of explore what types of programs are on that site? I'm not familiar with it.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Yes, I can definitely send you a link. Would you like me to email it to you? Okay, will do.
Any other comments? Seeing none, please call for the roll. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Ruffridge,
Yes.
Pamela Parker,
Yes.
Carrie, please unmute Mr. Carey. Okay. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, visual. Thank you. Councilmember Chilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Parker, Student Representative Cox.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Motion passed, passed 5-0. Moving on to new business. Item 8B, Resolution 2020-052, approving $168,800 grant from the COVID-19 CARES Act Relief Special Revenue Fund to provide a grant to the Kenai River campus of Kenai Peninsula College for programs and services to meet the needs of students and staff related to the COVID-19 public health emergency, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to adopt?
I'll move to adopt Resolution 2020-052.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffridge. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was originally intended to be scheduled at your most recent meeting, but due to a lack of a quorum was brought back with a new resolution number. And consistent with how we're administering this phase 2 of nonprofit grant funding through the CARES Act, we're reaching out individually to nonprofits or local government partners that provide services in the community and working to identify eligible funding projects, COVID-related, that may be eligible for use of those federal funds. We had some brainstorming discussions with the college, and they identified some COVID expenses that we believe would be eligible for funding through the CARES Act. And in the memo, we outline those 3 basic areas, which include transitioning and really building up the infrastructure behind a virtual health clinic. They've got a health clinic here at the Kenai River campus. And this project, this funding would be used to expand the capacity to serve students in a virtual capacity. The second item revolves around laptop and technology support, both for staff to telework, but also in the Learning Center and the library here also at the Kenai River campus. And the third is really around the paramedics EMS program, which was significantly disrupted due to COVID. Traditionally, those students in their final, as they're nearing the end of that program, will travel out of state and get the experience they need. They weren't able to do that, and so the staff at KPC really got creative and stood up some new technology and new partnerships with significant additional expense to allow those students to be able to complete that program. So those 3 kind of basic areas, a grant from the city of the CARES Act funding would support those expenses. The college director has submitted some additional ideas for expenses that could also be CARES Act eligible if the council wanted to consider adding those as well. Those are detailed in the memo, but they include approximately $40,000 for some facility improvements, as well as $53,500 for essentially a waiver of a portion of the tuition for students at KPC who are Soldotna residents. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item? And for those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing and raising the raise your hand button, and phone participants by *9 on your telephone. Seeing no one here in the council chambers, I do see some hands raised on the Zoom, and that would be first Mr. Paul Perry.
To everybody listening, when you speak, you are promoted to panelist. It briefly logs you in and out of Zoom quickly, so please do not panic. You're not being disconnected.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. We made it. So good evening. My name is Paul Perry, and I'm the Paramedic Program Director at Kenai Peninsula College. I came here tonight to advocate for your support in using some of the city's CARE funding to help with some unexpected COVID-related expenses, the college, and more specifically, the challenges that the paramedic program has faced since the pandemic was identified. When COVID first disrupted last March, we had to find ways to continue teaching EMTs and paramedics on the Kenai Peninsula so that the EMS workforce would continue to be available for both local and statewide employment. This training, like everything else in our lives, took an entirely new format, including the use of video conferencing and online didactic lessons, but also multiple skills labs in multiple classrooms, all being taught concurrently by multiple instructors. The paramedic program through KPC is requesting CARES funds specifically for the purchase of a high-fidelity infant simulator and adult trauma task trainer mannequins that will allow for paramedic students to work in these smaller groups at the same time with the same mannequin types. Funds would also be used to compensate our local and out-of-state paramedic educators that the college had to hire to work directly with paramedic students during 5 different 2-week-long lab intensives. These lab sessions allow our students to complete all of the program graduation requirements and prepare them for their final 480-hour ambulance ride-along, something that would not have been possible without the extra paramedic educators being hired. Lastly, these funds would be used to offset some additional medical supplies and the shipping costs for those online skills labs that have been sent to all 17 of the current paramedic students. The first online lab taught the students IV therapy, medication administration, and intramuscular injections online. The next lab focuses on advanced airway management, including a surgical airway PIG lab. As you consider the uses of your CARES funds, I would ask that you look to Kenai Peninsula College. COVID has taken a toll on a lot of people, but maintaining a solid training foundation will be well worth the investment in the long run. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Are there any questions comments from the council? Seeing and hearing none, thank you again, Mr. Perry. The next speaker up would be Mr. Gary Turner.
And Mr. Turner has joined us. Mr. Turner, you are on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too, Shelley. Mayor Whitney, City Manager Queen, and City Council members, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to testify in support of Resolution 2020-052. I'm Gary Turner, Director of Kenai Peninsula College and living at 215 Riverwatch Drive in Soldotna. As noted in this resolution and as explained by the city manager, we requested $168,800 for the Kenai River campus to address some of our funding issues caused by the pandemic. Like so many other institutions, organizations, and individuals, COVID-19 has caused many negative impacts on our college, our students, and our faculty and staff. With your support, some of these hardships can be lessened for us, especially for our students. For the city manager's memo, our original proposal included an additional $93,500 to support a Soldotna resident student scholarship for $53,500. The majority of KPC students work, about 85% of them, while attending college. Due to the pandemic, many are struggling financially due to the closure or reduced hours of businesses and businesses that typically employ our students. And they have so many childcare challenges. So on Monday, the City of Homer approved such a scholarship program for Kachemak Bay students residing in the City of Homer. Our initial request also included an additional $40,000 for facilities that would provide exterior door operators for hands-free ingress after an access card is scanned. All KPC staff, faculty, and students are issued a scannable ID card. And an additional benefit of this is it will improve our campus accessibility for the disabled. Also included under facilities are mountable hands-free sanitizer disbursement stations for each campus entrance and classroom. I ask that the council consider these additional 2 requests. I can entertain any questions and thank you in advance for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing and hearing none, thank you again, Mr. Turner. Ms. Sainer, is there anyone else on the line or anywhere that remotely that would like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see no other hands raised.
Thank you. Hearing no one else who wishes to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Ms. Parker?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I have to declare a conflict of interest and feel I should not vote on this resolution. I serve on the University of Alaska Board of Regents, and through that capacity, we also are involved in budgeting for campuses, so I would ask that you see that I do have a conflict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker, and we agree with you, and you can sit this one out. I would like to make one quick comment here. As we are down to 4 council members, for this resolution to pass, it will require a positive vote from all 4. Any other comments or discussion by the council? Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the city administration for working with KPC to bring this forward. KPC has always had a special place in my heart. I actually started my college experience there. It's a fantastic community. I can't speak enough positive words about it. I also know what it's like to be a student living on your own and working and really struggling to pay those tuition bills while you're making ends meet. So I would be fully supportive of adding the additional item to fund our Soldotna residents and provide that Soldotna scholarship program at the $500 amounts. So to that end, I would move that we amend line 1, section 1 of the attached resolution 2020-052, increasing the amount of $168,800 by the specified, I believe, $53,500 to a total of $222,300 to support the Soldotna scholarship program.
Do I hear a second for that motion? Ms.
I'll
Pamela
second.
Parker. That was a second by Ms. Pamela Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Through the mayor, Jordan, does that also include the title amended as well? The motion?
Yes, if needed.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or discussion on the amendment? Mr. Ruffridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I just would be concerned mostly just about our remaining CARES funds. So this is a discussion that we're having tonight. I think we had approximately $315,000 remaining in our nonprofits and critical service partnership phase 2 grants, and approximately $305,000 from this category are proposed in 3 separate grants tonight. Increasing by that amount would certainly put us well above that mark. So just maybe discussion regarding that discrepancy.
Go ahead, Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to that, what I would say is you can think of this as basically a direct cash assistance to Soldotna residents. And I think it's assistance that's to the residents that most likely need it most. These are our young college students, our working families that are going to school. By giving them access to this scholarship, you're essentially giving them extra money that they can budget for other purposes to make ends meet. I think it's pretty vital assistance and it's going directly to Soldotna residents, and I think it's the residents that most likely need it the most. So I'm fully supportive of it, and that'd be my response.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. I would ask the administration if we could answer Mr. Ruffridge's question about the additional funding that's over and above that, 300 and some thousand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for the question, Mr. Ruffridge, so the council had previously approved the spending plan, which identified $750,000 for phase 2 of nonprofits. With the 3 resolutions proposed tonight, the council would get very close to that $750,000. So it would be easy, however, to reallocate funding from one of the other line items. And for example, the economic relief for residents specifically is a line item where we, the city, budgeted quite a bit of money that we now recognize we won't be able to fully expend through that particular program. So should the council wish to increase the funding within Resolution 2020-052, we would simply come back to you at the next meeting, which we are planning to do anyway, with a revision to that spending plan, and we would look at those other line items to be able to draw funding from. There will be excess funding available in the resident relief program, as well as the water sewer relief program. So I think within our CARES Act budget, on the whole, there are funds available should the council approve the motion.
Mr. Ruffridge, did you have a follow-up for that?
I did, thank you. So the additional funding that we're talking about in this amendment is only for the student scholarships, not for the facility expenses. Is that correct, as I understand it?
That is correct. The way I see this is we're taking money that's allocated directly, for direct assistance to residents. And although this is being given to a nonprofit, this particular program is funding to our residents. I would view this as direct assistance to our residents.
Is there any follow-up?
No, thank you.
I would ask the city clerk if she could please read back that amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. The amendment would include in the funding for KPC the $53,500 for Soldotna resident student scholarships, and would amend the resolution title to read approving $222,300 from the COVID-19 CARES Act Relief Special Revenue Fund to provide a grant to the Kenai River campus of Kenai Peninsula College for programs and services to meet the needs of the students and staff related to the COVID-19 public health emergency. And it would also amend Section 1, and the council hereby approves $222,300 grant from the COVID-19 CARES Act Relief Special Revenue Fund to the Kenai River campus of Kenai Peninsula College to provide laptops and equipment to facilities, distance learning, teaching, learning for students and staff, to create a virtual health and wellness clinic for students, to facilitate and modify capstone internet programs, and to provide, gotta scroll down, to provide provide for Soldotna resident student scholarships, offering $500 tuition waiver.
Thank you. Any further comments from the council? Mr. Ruffridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just had a question on the pandemic and EMS program expenses. I'm just making an assumption that with the addition of these items and supplies and such, is this sort of setting up the EMS department, which is a fairly large program, as I understand it, at KPC, to be able to offer more in-house modified programs for the future, or after this pandemic sort of has subsided, is it the plan to go back to studying in the lower 48? And I don't know who that question would be directed to.
Is that something the city administration could answer?
I would defer to Director Turner at KPC, who's still with us on the phone, to answer Mr. Effridge's question.
Mr. Turner, did you hear that question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the pandemic, as Paul Perry explained, really put a pause into what we typically do. These students, typically in their last semester, they go out of state to do ride-alongs with large fire departments and EMS providers in the lower 48. They spend anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, 8 weeks down there. And because they get so many calls, and it's real difficult to do that many calls in our state. So after the pandemic, we'll probably still start sending students down there, but this gives us the opportunity to reach out to a lot more students across the U.S. who want to attend KPC's paramedic program. And we have, we've more than doubled the number of students since we've gone online, especially from the lower 48. So it'll be a blended group with some going down there, some maybe not, but this gives us the opportunity to expand the program and provide more paramedics and EMTs across our state and across the country.
Thank you. Follow-up, Mr. Ruffridge?
No, Mr. Mayor. I think that is sufficient. Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, would you please call the roll on the amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Whitten. Councilmember Ruffridge?
Yes.
Pamela Parker?
Yes.
Carey?
Yes.
Chilson?
Yes.
Lisa Parker? Sorry. And Student Representative Cox?
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
The motion passes 4-0. And moving on to the main motion, which is the approval of the resolution. Is there any further comments or discussion on it? Seeing and hearing none, would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Ruffridge?
Yes.
Pamela Parker? Ms. Parker, you're muted.
I had it on the wrong screen. Sorry. Yes.
Councilmember Carey?
Yes.
Councilmember Chilson?
Yes.
And Student Representative Cox?
Yes.
And you have 4 yes votes, and I apologize, I have to go back on the amendment that was approved with 4 yes votes because there was 1 abstention. I stated it incorrectly. I roll called it correctly, though.
Resolution 2020-052 is passed 4-0 as amended. And moving on to the next item under new business, Resolution 2020-053, approving $115,000 from the COVID-19 CARES Act Relief Special Revenue Fund to provide a grant to the Soldotna Chamber of Commerce for a Shop Local Economic Stimulus Program to benefit Soldotna small businesses harmed by the COVID-19 public health emergency, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to adopt?
Make a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-053.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffridge. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Vice Mayor Parker? Now we have a second from Vice Mayor.
Mayor Whitney, I'd like to declare a conflict, please. Possible conflict.
Go ahead.
With Resolution 2020-053, as I'm currently the president of the Soldotna Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and a small business owner within the city limits.
Thank you, and I'll rule that you do have a conflict, and we'll be sitting this one out. Thank you. A report from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite John Zarneski, our Director of Economic Development and Planning, to provide the report.
Good evening. I'd like to share with you tonight an exciting project that we're going to be hopefully working with the Chamber of Commerce on. This is a buy local program that's modeled after a similar program in Haines, Alaska, where they created a program where if you a resident would spend $300 locally, they would receive a $100 voucher or gift certificate to then use at these same city businesses. They funded the program at about $20,000 and made it available to the first 200 folks with their $100 coupon. And we really like this program, but at the same time, we recognize that we don't have the capacity at this point to take it on. So we asked for assistance from Shannon and her team at the Chamber. They also love this concept and agreed to partner with us. Under the proposal that's before you, they would administer and market the program. And this program would be similar to the Haynes program with a few slight twists. Instead of the $300 spending threshold, we are looking at a $200 threshold to receive a $100 coupon. We believe this would allow for greater participation. And also it would hopefully curtail the use of the program for buying big ticket items like TVs, phones, and furniture. Everyone would be able to participate in this program and qualify for a $100 coupon regardless of where they live. But the participating businesses have to be located in city limits. And at the proposed funding level before you, 1,000 people could participate in this program. We don't have all the details worked out at this point, but through our initial discussions, our focus is on benefiting our local small businesses that have been hurt by COVID-19. And to get the $100 voucher, the program participants would have to submit receipts for discretionary spending at places like hotels, restaurants, art shops, for jewelry, spas, books, flowers, and more, but not for things like fuel, groceries, utilities, medical bills. Those types of non-discretionary expenses, we already have programs in place, and we feel those needs have been filled. Like our other small business programs, this program would require self-certification of participating businesses that have been harmed by the pandemic. And this program would run for approximately 30 days. We're hoping it would kick off on November 30th and end on December 16th. That would provide, I think, us the opportunity to get the program out during the peak shopping days of the holidays. The last thing I would say is that Shannon, I believe, is online if you have any questions of her regarding to the chamber role. But apart from that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have.
If there's no objection from the council, I'll ask Ms. Davis to come on. Ms. Davis?
You are muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hello. Just wanted to be available to answer any questions that you might have. I never want to correct Mr. Zarneski, but I will clarify that the $100 voucher would actually be broken into two separate $50 vouchers so that they would be able to be spent in two different locations to kind of share the love between our businesses. And other than that, I'm just here to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions from the council? Mr. Ruffridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess mostly just the list, I think, John or Shannon, that you had given about businesses that could participate. Would there be a limit on the number of businesses or just the type of business that could participate?
So we were going to use the criteria for the original CARES funding for businesses, and John provided me with that information, and we modified it just a tiny bit. But really, other than that, the only caveat would be that your business is located within the city limits of Soldotna. He just provided me with a mailing list today of potential businesses that had been identified in the first round of CARES funding, and I believe that had 280 businesses. included. We would be paring that down a little bit from there, and not every business would want to participate, but most would be eligible to.
Mr. Rufford?
So if I understand that, it would be businesses who had applied for CARES money from the city would be eligible to enroll in the program.
Yeah, I need to clarify that a little bit more. We are using the eligibility criteria that would have qualified them to receive funding, but businesses that did not receive funding in the original CARES funding would still be able to apply to be in this program. And they would also, we intend to leave the registration for businesses open and have it be a continually growing list of businesses, because most of this will happen online, and we will be able to very quickly add new businesses into the program as they learn about it and would like to jump on. We could do that within a day and get them up and running.
My last one is just, would the vouchers expire for use?
Yes, so we would look to the city administration for the expiration date, but I believe they would need to be spent within the CARES funding criteria, which would be at the end of the year, December 31st.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council or comments? Seeing none.
I love this idea, so thanks to the two of you for coming up with it. Fully support it.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item? And for those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Public comments are open. There's no one here in the chambers. And do we have any attendees that have their hand raised?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see no hands raised.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comment, I'll bring it back to the council. Are there any further council comments? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ruffridge,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Lisa Parker, Student Representative Cox.
Yes.
You have 5 yes. I'm sorry, 4 yes votes, 1 abstention.
Resolution 2020-053 passed on a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 3, Resolution 2020-054, approving $21,986 from the COVID-19 CARES Act Relief Special Revenue Fund to provide a grant to Love Inc. for emergency cold weather shelter supplies for services related to the COVID-19 public health emergency, introduced by Councilmember Ruffridge. May I have a motion to adopt? Vice Mayor Parker.
Mayor Whitney moved to adopt Resolution 2020-054.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffridge. A report from Councilmember Ruffridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a project that I'm happy to say we've been working on together with the administration, Mr. Zarneski, Ms. Queen, along with Leslie from Love Inc., trying to identify some ways that we could utilize CARES Relief Fund to help promote the cold weather shelter being open by the end of the year. Certainly, we've had this project come before us a number of times as an item just of note of progress being made or progress being lost in some cases. Certainly this year, I think we're going to be faced with a number of increases in potential need for a cold weather shelter due to COVID-19. And in the interest of attempting to provide what little help that we can as a city, we asked Leslie to put together a list of items that would be related to opening a cold weather shelter as soon as possible, and what those items might be to be up and running. I just got an update from her today that there's an option for a place that they're currently discussing, and that it remains to be seen whether that pans out or not. But obviously, this would be dependent upon them finding a place for the cold weather shelter to be, and then this would allow us to provide the supplies to get that up and running by the end of the year, and would appreciate your support.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Seeing no one in the council chambers, is there anyone online, Ms. City Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see no hands raised.
Thank you. We'll bring this back before the council. Are there any council comments or discussion? Ms. Parker.
Question for Councilmember Ruffridge. How many beds are you looking at? Because as I look at the list of items that Love Inc. would like to purchase, 22,000 doesn't seem to be enough. And maybe at some point they would come back and request additional funding. But so how many beds? Cots?
Through the mayor, thank you, Councilmember Parker. 36 cots, I think, was it in the list from Leslie. To be really frank, I actually, in the process of working with Leslie, asked her to shoot for the moon. 21,986 is the moon right now. So, yeah, I think honestly speaking, there's a real necessity to try to keep spending to what can be accomplished by the end of the year realistically. And although it would be very nice to put more into that, should it be available or usable, and we could certainly do that at a later time, this is the amount that could be reasonably spent by the end of the year and provide something that would greatly increase their chances of being operational in these really great need times.
Thank you.
Any further comments or discussion by the council? Seeing none, would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Ruffridge,
Yes.
Pamela Parker,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Lisa Parker, Student Representative Cox.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Resolution 2020-054 has passed at 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to item C, Action Memorandum 2020-024, a discussion and possible action regarding a rotation of council in-person attendance at city council meetings. And I'd ask for a report from the city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I brought this forward based on the size of our council chambers and the fact that the last meeting, the city manager and I had a feeling that we were going to have a large public turnout, which we did not. However, the spacing in our room when we have full council plus the required staff in here leaves 4 seats for the public. And in the diagram provided, you can see that each time somebody rotates out and attends through Zoom, it opens up the meeting. Tonight, because we have so many that are attending remotely, we have a substantial amount of space in chambers. So it was just something that I wanted to bring to the council's attention. If we do have a large crowd, the place for the public at a public meeting is very limited. And I'm available for questions.
Any questions or discussion from the council? Ms. Pamela Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. So my only kind of comment or concern about this is that it seems like it just adds additional work and stress and planning when it comes to meetings. But particularly when we're in this really high risk time right now with our COVID case count in the area. And I personally believe that it would just be simpler and safer to move to all remote meetings for a majority of the council or and the entire public that wishes to attend, especially during times like this. That way we're not trying to navigate what things would look like in chambers and how to keep everybody safe if we're having such high level of community spread right now or in the future. Again, it just seems safer and easier for all involved to do entirely remote meetings.
Mr. Chilson?
Oh, hello?
Mr. Chilson?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like it to echo the same thoughts. I have concerns about us continuing to meet in person when we are seeing the just exponentially skyrocketing counts here. I personally believe that we should be fully remote. If you look back when we were fully remote earlier this year, our counts were a fraction of where they are now, and I'm surprised we haven't already done that transition back to full remote, with the exception of maybe the mayor and the staff who cannot do that, need to be there in person. So that would be my stance as well.
Mr. Ruffridge? Have any comments?
Sure, if I'm getting called out for comments, I will comment. Just maybe a question for, I'm trying to remember back to when we were doing remote meetings before. Obviously, it's not fully remote. There's people in here. What is the core group that has to be in this room?
Ms. Sainer?
Through the mayor, I have to be here to run the equipment. The presiding officer, generally the mayor, is in here with me. That way he has the clerk at his left-hand side if any questions come up. And previously the city manager was in here occasionally, but most of the time in her office. So it was generally just the mayor and I in this room together. And I think there was one meeting where I was the only one in this room.
Thank you.
Mayor Whitney?
Yes, go ahead.
I have a motion to hopefully help direct us towards making a decision. So I move that during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the Central Peninsula is rated in the high risk level, that all city council, board, and commission meetings to be conducted remotely through electronic means. Persons attending the meetings through electronic means will include the public, city council members, and boards and commission members, with the exception of the presiding officer of each body and staff required to effectively conduct a meeting shall be present in chambers. And then this motion, if approved, shall stay in effect through the COVID-19 pandemic unless earlier rescinded by a majority vote of the council or the mayor in consultation with the administration when they determine that an in-person meeting is imperative. And I'm happy to repeat any of that because it was lengthy.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Ruffridge,
Yes.
Pamela Parker,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Lisa Parker, Student Representative Cox.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
That was a squeaky yes over here, but we had, that motion passes and at 5-0, and we will begin holding council meetings remotely. Present would be the staff needed, city clerk, city manager, the mayor. That would be it, unless other staff are needed. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, through the mayor, for additional clarification, we publish the meeting and how it's attended 1 week, or we send it to the newspaper a week before. So the determination will be made 5 days before the council meeting on how it will be attended should our levels drop back into the medium risk level.
Thank you. And moving on to the next item on the agenda is number 9, Mayor and Council reports. Mayor's report and proclamation. I have a couple of things here. First off would be a proclamation. Whereas the United States is a beacon of hope, freedom, and opportunity to people around the world, and whereas the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who fight to defend our liberty and embody courage, patriotism, and loyalty, and whereas throughout our nation's history, our military men and women have boldly answered the call of duty to defend our nation's independence and precious liberties, risking life and limb for their fellow Americans. And whereas Americans have remained at the vanguard in defending freedom around the world, and our service members, veterans, and their families continue to spearhead this noble undertaking. And whereas America's military men and women and their families are vital to the security and prosperity of our nation, we have a responsibility to protect and serve those who have made countless sacrifices for love of our country. As President Lincoln once said, honor to the soldier and sailors everywhere who bravely bears his country's cause. Honor also the citizen who cares for his brother in the field and serves, as best he can, the same cause. And whereas we recognize the integral role of our military family members play in supporting our armed forces and contributing to their mission, while our men and women are serving at home or overseas, it is our duty to provide their families with the resources they need to thrive in our communities. And whereas each warrior who fights for our nation, along with their families, has earned our eternal gratitude, I ask the citizens of Soldotna to thank and support these brave heroes and their families. Now, therefore, I, Paul J. Whitney, Mayor of the City of Soldotna, do hereby proclaim November 2020 as Veteran and Military Families Month in the City of Soldotna, and honor and express deep appreciation for these brave men and women and their families. I encourage everyone to acknowledge and honor the service, sacrifices, and contributions of veterans and military families for what they have done and for what they do every day to support our great nation. And I thank all these veterans and their families for everything they've done and continue to do. A couple of other items here. Last week on Tuesday, the 20th, the Local Boundary Commission met. They were in an executive session for about 2 hours to discuss the motion that they had on the floor. And then there was some ex parte questions submitted to the commission members. Commissioner Harrington had one not considered critical. The city letter was read and a motion passed 3-2 to accept the additional material submitted by the city. And others can comment on those until October the 28th to send in a written response only to the city material. There's still a motion on the floor to make the petition a local option vote rather than legislative review. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October the 29th at 10 a.m. And that would be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and when they will make a decision on our petition. On Thursday, October the 22nd, we had a conference call with the governor. Ms. Queen and myself were involved in that, along with other mayors on the peninsula and city managers. The governor's comments were the COVID numbers are going up, and there's no surprise there, as it is very contagious and easily spread. They're thinking that the next 2 months are going to be very trying and difficult for not only our communities, but the entire state. And we're seeing that right now with all the large increases in our local numbers here. And unfortunately, we did see a death recorded in our area today, and my heart goes out to the family. Most of these cases are, as they're reporting, are not fatal, except the elderly and vulnerable. Hospitalizations. Originally, they thought the numbers were fairly low, but they realized that there was a miscount, and some of those hospitalization numbers have gone up and are continuing to go up. And but they say the length of time for those that are in the hospital is actually not as long as they expected. The vaccine, it reported, was hoping to be very promising, and hope it will be out soon and available. Will not eliminate, but hopefully hold down the number of new cases. The state has submitted a plan for approval, and probably with that, be the first responders, hospital staff, and vulnerable elderly and vulnerable people who would probably receive that first when it's available. I strongly, personally urge people to wear a mask and practice social distancing. We can only hope a safe and proven vaccine is made available soon that will at least hold the numbers down. This is more than just a flu. People get sick and pass away with the flu, but this is affecting a lot of people, both here locally and statewide. I was quite surprised at the numbers that we saw over the weekend, and it's having a great effect on our community. I have personally known more people in the last few days that have tested positive and are either in quarantine or possibly even hospitalized now. So here again, I urge everyone to wear a mask, strongly urge everyone to wear a mask and practice social distancing. And the next week is the big elections. Please get out there and vote if you haven't already done so. It's important to our community, our country, and there's many important issues on that ballot. So please vote on Tuesday. And then we have a vacant council seat, Seat A. I'm hoping we get a number of applications for that seat. I'm not sure what's the deadline for that filing.
The application deadline is November 3rd.
Oh, so on voting day, when you come down to vote, you can drop off your application here with the city clerk's office. And I believe I have spoken enough for now. That's all I have. It does not look like there are any council reports on boards or commissions. So moving on to the next item is the city manager's report. Ms. Queen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you noted, we also internally are kind of revisiting and reminding our employees, city employees, about precautions and our updated policies to ensure that they're staying vigilant with social distancing and mask wearing. I believe the city clerk shared with you a copy of our internal personnel policy booklet that we put together and recently updated. Our HR manager, Jessica Reagan, and I held 2 virtual town halls open to all city employees who wanted to ask questions. We've put out a frequently asked questions document on our intranet page as well. And we continue to support and encourage department heads and really reinforcing how critical these measures are, particularly now as the risk in the community spread is more widespread in our area. We do have some challenges with staffing now, which is not unexpected because our policy now is more stringent with illness in terms of being out of the office, and it may require a person to be out normally than they would have under normal circumstances. But on top of that, regular life things continue to happen, and unfortunately, occasionally there's a friend or a death in a family or non-COVID related items that keep employees out. And so we're trying to be very flexible, supportive of our staff. And then myself and our HR director are also trying to be entirely supportive of department heads who still have the expectation that they keep the work done, getting done on a timely manner. So we're revisiting some of the work we did early on, thinking about continuity of operations, what are the critical services, what are our contingency plans, and where within our policy can we accommodate some flexibility for safety-related things. So for example, when we get our first big snow and we need to get the streets cleared, making sure that we've got contingency plans and backup plans. Same thing for public safety, same things for water, sewer, utilities. So some of this work we prepped early on back in March and April. We didn't need it then. We're revisiting it because it's more likely we'll need it in the months ahead to stay fully staffed. At this point, there's no change to the accessibility of any of our facilities. So internally, I'm continuing to touch base with department heads, for example, at the library, at the sports center. We continue to just have discussions, see how things are going, see where we're at. And currently, we're not recommending or have not made any changes in terms of the openness of our facilities. That's something that there's not going to be, in my recommendation, a hard trigger for. It's just something we're going to keep an eye on. So for the library, for example, Rachel and I are talking on gate count, how many people are coming in, how are folks doing with the recommendations for mask wearing. So far, it's going really well. She feels comfortable that we can keep providing that service, even with the schools being closed the last several weeks. And I want to let you know that we're just touching base on that frequently. We'll continue to do that throughout. Shifting gears now, just give you a quick report, and I'll follow up with a written report, but I want to give you an update on some of the numbers of the different programs that are out there. The virtual storefront improvement program has been very successful. 15 businesses have taken advantage of that. That's the funding to assist them with improving their web presence. So over $21,000 in grants to those 15 businesses through the virtual storefront improvement program. Phase 2 business grants, these are the ones that just opened up in October. As of today, we've issued 65 awards for $1,621,000. So of the original $2.5 million that the council had identified for Phase 2 business grants, we're well on our way. We're going to get pretty close to that with the grants that have gone out already. And the ones that are still in the process. And that there's a few more days that businesses can apply for that, but we've gotten several applications already that are going to add to that total. Those awards are capped at $35,000. The average for businesses in this phase 2 is about $25,000. So many businesses are eligible for that full amount. That's been a good program, and we're cutting checks weekly. So we've issued 3 batches of checks already. The most recent went out just today. The Phase 2 nonprofits, those are the individual awards that the council's authorized. Considering the additional ones that were granted tonight, we're at about $793,000, and that was the category originally that we earmarked $750 for. So when we come back next at your next meeting, the council can have an opportunity to advise whether you want to continue funding nonprofits through the end of the year, but that's been very successful in getting those funds out as well. AHFC rent and mortgage relief, there were 47 households in Soldotna who originally applied when the statewide program was opened up back in June. There are 122 new applicants. So that program has been heavily used. Of the 400,000 that we originally estimated, I think based on today's number, it'd be closer to about 550,000 that would be needed to fund those 4 months. So we'll likely recommend to the council supplement the original funding with some additional funding to make sure that all of those eligible households can get that rent and mortgage relief. Water sewer waivers for residences, we have issued 105 of those through the finance department. So that's about $40,000 worth of savings to households in the city. The economic relief program, that's the $1,500 grant that can go out to individual households, only 35. So that program's been open all month, same timeline as the Phase 2 business grants. And to date, we've issued 35 of those awards for a total of approximately $52,000. And if you'll recall, this was the program that Mr. Zarneski and I feared might overwhelm us in terms of administrative burden. We recommended $1.5 million for this program. To date, we're at $52,000. So we are brainstorming ways to help get the word out. To date, with our marketing, we were concerned about saturation of information. I think that was, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that was discussed on maybe the call with the governor or one of the other statewide calls I was on recently is that there's so much COVID-related information out there. There's so much election information out there. It's difficult to have your messages potentially be seen, but it is something we're open to and thinking about. We've done direct mailers, social media, radio. The newspapers have been good about it. That's just a program that has fallen far short of our earlier expectations. And I think that concludes my report, but I'd be very happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Parkman.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Stephanie, with respect to the funds for individuals to use for daycare, whatever, so if we've got so many people who are needing help with mortgage assistance, I would think they would also, we could contact those folks to let them know about the program, if we haven't already.
Thank you for that question. And we've recently done that. AHFC was reluctant to share with us the data about who had been receiving that rent and mortgage relief, which was okay with us. What they did instead was they pushed out our messaging. So we helped them with some information. They sent it out to everyone who had applied through the rent and mortgage relief program to let them know of this additional opportunity for folks. And I think we did see a slight uptick in applications since they pushed out that messaging.
And then one more
ahead.
question. Phase 3 funds, are we going to be eligible to apply for the Phase 3 funds, and remind us the deadline on that one?
So by phase 3, are you referring to the third tranche of funding from the state? I will have to take a look and follow up with an email to see how close we are in that. What I can tell you is that I'm fairly confident that potentially even this month we will be able to utilize all of the funding from the borough. So originally I had anticipated spending borough funds exclusively on phase 2 business grants. What I did was work with Brenda Alberg, the borough administrator of their grants program, to allow us to spend it on business grants and nonprofit grants. So we're actually going to bill many of these nonprofit awards that we've recently issued to the borough. The reason for that is because the borough passing through their funds as a second-class borough, there's a narrower list of things that we can use those eligible funds for. So I wanted to ensure that we were making the best use of that resource. So we're on track to do that with all the boroughs, $2.5 million. I will review kind of where we're at on items that we've billed to the state to see how close we are to requesting that third tranche. We can do it anytime up until the end of the year. So we will definitely be in a position. I'm just not sure if we've crossed that threshold yet.
Any further questions from the council? Actually, I do have one. Maybe you could discuss what we as the city may need to do if the statewide emergency declaration expires on November the 15th, how that would affect us.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. One item that we internally will have to decide on and update is whether to replace interstate travel policy. So currently, the statewide disaster declaration includes health mandates, including 10.1, I believe, regarding folks who travel out of state and come back into state. In our internal employee policy, we refer exclusively to that policy in terms of if employees go out of state for personal reasons, they would come back and follow those rules. When we were in conversations last week with the governor and his administration, he was going to get back to us and let us know more clearly what the outcome would be if the disaster declaration expires on those mandates, and we could prepare to follow-up act if we need. So really, I think it's almost exclusively an internal personnel decision. We would be in a position to decide if the travel mandate goes away, do we want to replace it with some additional requirements for our own employees who come back from out of state? Other than that, I do know that the city council and the city of Soldotna has its independent authority to issue a disaster declaration, so there wouldn't be an impact on our disaster declaration that's currently in place. It would, from my perspective, potentially be more focused on statewide rules or mandates that we might refer to, whether we would have to recreate our own in those absence.
Did we receive any feedback on some of the information that was going to be forwarded on to us?
I have not received any additional information since our meeting.
Thank you. Any council comments or questions to the city manager? Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Seeing no one here in the chambers, City Clerk, is there any remote attendees wishing to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I see no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Moving on to number 12, council comments. And we will start this evening out with Student Representative Mr. Cox.
This week, we've been on online learning with remote learning. And this weekend, Thursday and Friday, we have parent-teacher conferences online through Zoom instead of being inside the school. Sports, volleyball and swim have been back to practicing, and volleyball is supposed to be having a end of the season jamboree next week, hosted, I think, here. And swim is planning on having theirs in a few weeks. As a student council, we are moving ahead with senior program outreach programs, with sending letters to the senior homes and then trying to get Zooms so we can participate more with the senior citizens there. And we are also trying to figure out how we can help with food drive and our food drive in the food bank. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Next, Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No comments tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Carey.
Thank you. I want to, again, praise the staff for all the work that is being done. And I know it's a huge amount of extra work, and you're still doing your regular work. And so I just appreciate it and the creativity I'm hearing. I also want to applaud today the Alaska State Health Services. Last 10 days, except for Sunday, I've had a call from them each time as part of my quarantine. And it's just they've been very helpful and very thorough. I have a 3-day report in, tested now, and hopefully it'll come back negative, and I'll be allowed to be out and about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Mr. Ruffridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to applaud the local health group. I had the opportunity to participate in an event this weekend on Saturday, sort of as a precursor for potential rollout of large-scale vaccinations in our community for COVID, and had a really awesome turnout of volunteers and from all sorts of entities in the Central Peninsula to give flu shots on Saturday. I think we ended up giving close to 300 flu shots, and did that for ages, I think youngest was 1, all the way up to an 81-year-old person. But the ability for everybody to work together with borough emergency management team, public health, all of the various health organizations on the peninsula, the National Guard. There was just really nice event. It was freezing cold and it was outside. So if COVID vaccine comes at any point before, I was going to say April, but I'm going to go June, we might need to figure out a different venue than outdoors under tents. But it went really well and really efficient, and proud of that group. And I think if you have the opportunity to thank the public health people right now, I can say from hanging out with them on Saturday, they are exhausted, and they're working incredibly hard. And I don't think they get a lot of appreciation for what they do, mostly because if they're talking to you or engaged in conversation with you, it's usually for a specific reason right now, and that's a positive case of COVID or questions regarding COVID, and that generates some anxiety in people, anger in others, concern for other people, fear for people, and they're working very hard to meet that need. And if you know any of those people, just say a brief thank you and maybe say a prayer for them.
Ms. Pamela Parker.
Thank you. So I did have just 2 comments tonight, and they actually I noticed a theme when I was formulating what I wanted to say, and they both relate to strong local women. And the first one is just that with this vacant seat that we have on council, my hopes are that we will see a plethora of strong local women applying to serve on the city council with us, and particularly because, as I've quoted before, notorious RBG, and that women should be in all places where decisions are being made. So I really would like to see us add additional strong female leadership to the council. However, with a caveat that their last name cannot be Parker, because that would just be too much. And then my second comment, unfortunately, is a sad one. I'm not sure if you all have heard, but Soldotna did lose Rosie Reeder, and her family did announce that this morning. She was just always such a positive presence in our community and has done so much to really strengthen our local businesses and community organizations. And it's just with such a sad heart that we hear that news today. And my hopes really are just that everyone will leave tonight and keep their family in your thoughts. And just my heart goes out to their family at this difficult time. And that's all I had for tonight.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Parker. Okay, thank you. Next is executive session. There's no need for one tonight. Meeting announcements. The November 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting has been canceled. November 5th, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting will be at 5:30 p.m. Thursday, and note that's different than our normal meeting night, is November 12th, City Council meeting at 6 p.m. Again, just everyone, don't forget to vote on Tuesday. And seeing no further business for the council, we are adjourned.